No, I don't think so either. Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name's Lainey. This is the lovely Heather over here, and we're gonna. Well, it's let's talk about, isn't it?
It is.
Love and relationships. We're still doing. It's kind of a part two because we did start this last week on Heather's channel. If you didn't see that, please check it out. The link for Heather's channel is below. Um, but yeah, it's such a big subject, and there's so many different types of relationships that we thought we would come back and yeah,
Yeah,
and,
it's what
and
life's
delve in
about,
it.
really, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
once it's what makes life tick along, and I think we place a lot of importance on relationships. There's a lot of pressure that comes with them, a lot of expectation that comes with them, but they're what make life so much fun if
yeah,
they work well.
that's true. And I think we all need them, don't we?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Even those of us who are quite happy in our own company,
mm,
feeling lonely, which I know is obviously sort of the flip side of it, is very much a part of why we need contact with other people, good people, not
yeah,
people who are going to diminish us, but friends, really good friends, and that's whether it's romantic love or whether it's good family or good friends.
yeah.
Mm.
And then I suppose you you have like I guess with you have a sort of relationship with people you work with, or
Mm.
your doctor, or you know what I mean. In all forms, really, it's a type of relationship, isn't it? Whether that
They're
be
all degrees of
professional,
it.
yeah,
Absolutely. And I mean, they all need a certain amount of kind of management, if you like. They do. It's a bit like gardening. If you don't do anything, the weeds take over. And I think
that's true.
managing your relationships, especially since we've all got busier thanks to sort of COVID being, shall we say, on beginning to shuffle off into the distance. I think for a
Yeah,
lot of people, they've suddenly gone back to a normal life, and then they thought, oh, hang on a minute, I'm a bit too busy, or I've got no time anymore, or I'm not seeing my family, or I'm not having the relationships I want, even though I can technically. It's really complicated.
it sure is. I wrote a few things down. Obviously, I did write here, uh, family and friends relationships, just because I know of. I mean, I've been really lucky with family wise that my family have been lovely, and I have there's no um, it's not toxic, you know what I mean. But I
Yes.
do know of friends who have some very toxic family members,
Mm.
and that must be really hard to deal with. Like I can't, you know what I mean?
It's hard to
Control.
imagine if you've never had it in your life
Yeah.
to the sort of the trauma of close family members
Hmm.
not being capable or able to have the relationship that as a child or as a youngster that you need, and then as you grow up that then flavors, quite often will
Mm.
flavor everything. And a good friend of mine who's no longer here but once said to me, when the first time you get married, you marry your father. The second time you get married, you marry your mother. And now it's not an absolute, but it does show that the kind of people you pick will often have something very familiar about them. And that's because
Yeah.
the very first relationships you form, whether they are good, bad, or indifferent, tend to be with your primary caregivers, which often will be a parent.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can see there are certain elements of how that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. And it's the same with friends. And I think we touched this last week in the y- some people can just take from you and not given and not be there when you're in need or whatever. Do you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
happens a
And
lot.
yeah, that does. And to me, that's not a friendship. Do you know what I mean? It's more of a like with one of my friends who, well, who's no longer my friend actually, but um, I felt more like a therapist slash mother slash. Do you know what I mean? Because I was like, I was always there at the end of the phone for her. I was always there. You know, she came here and stayed with me if she needed to, and things like that. And there was many times where I would change my own plans to help her to
Mm.
then be dropped in by her. That
Yeah,
happened quite a lot.
I mean, it can be very one-sided, and often it goes along quite a way before you suddenly realise that is actually what's happening. To
Yeah.
stand back from it and see the dynamic, because if you're a caring person, as obviously, Lainey, I know you are, but you when you have a friend, you care about them, and you will do whatever you can to help them, and that's kind of a given for a lot of us. But it's a bit of a nasty shock when you actually realise that it doesn't work both ways. In any kind of relationship, you will often find that there is somebody who is gaining more from the relationship than the other person.
I think with me, it just became out of hand because it would be like, ringing is it in the middle of the night and stuff, and like I says to you, it didn't actually hit home till that time I wasn't very well. That was when it sort of finally hit me. Like it was just, she was determined to speak to me, and because she was having arguments with a boyfriend and whatever, and when I realised that I had all those missed calls because she was going to wake me up regardless of, and she knew I wasn't very well.
That's a loving care of the highest order, isn't it? I mean, that is an absolute, complete lack of compassion or care. And that's the last thing you want to see in a friend. So it's a shock when it happens.
Yeah, yes. But that was what, changed things. That was what finally changed things, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but, you knew she hadn't got your back. That's the thing. You knew it didn't cut both ways.
Hi, Sylvia.
But obviously she was putting quite a lot of stuff on you. People often do this when they get very close with somebody, whether it's romantic or not or whatever, that's by the by. The tendency is to then project all the good qualities onto this other person, that they're kind of like amazing and the best person in the world. And then when they do something that doesn't fit with that very exacting group, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, they're not who I thought they were. Oh, and then it corrodes it. There are people who are very fixed in their mind of what they think somebody should be, which is a big mistake in life to be like that. But to put all of your needs and projections onto another person, it's dangerous ground.
Yes, because at the end of the day, we are responsible for our happiness. We are, you know what I mean? And yes, you can go to someone if you're troubled and whatever. That's one thing, going to someone for support in troubled times. But you know what I mean? And to be honest, it never mattered what I said to her. She would always go back to boyfriends who did all sorts of things, no matter what, you know what I mean? And
the conversation is when it's, how are you? And you say, oh, I'm okay, blah, 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 blah. You say a bit, and then the conversation somehow very quickly comes back onto them.
Yeah.
And that you realise they're not asking you any questions about you. That's real alarm bells, absolute alarm bells, when someone is really not concerned. They just want to spill their story, lay their shit on you. And it's just not acceptable. And I also think there is a, again, I bring this up, but it's being female that people think, oh, well, that's what you're good at, that's what you're for. And it's like, well, excuse me,
it's not. But then that's not true of all females, because I have female friends who are no good at that sort of thing. They're not very common in any situation. And I think I said to you before about catastrophizing things. So, and I know not to go to them if I'm worried about something. I wouldn't go to them for advice or comfort because I know they would make things worse, and it not because they intended to make it worse, but that's just that's the way they do. That's the way their life is. That's how they are with themselves. So they have they can't. You know what I mean? They think the worst of everything,
and they need drama. They need drama and something to complain about and something to get riled up about. And if there's nothing there, they will create it. Out of thin air.
Definitely.
Totally.
Yeah. What else have I put? I put what is important. Like in relationships of any kind, what is important? Like, is it? I mean, I suppose it could be different for different people, and it's different for dependent on the circumstance of the relationship. But I think trust is probably right up there, isn't it? Like, if you don't have trust with someone, I don't see how you can have a relationship with them.
It's very, very true. But something that I think often gets misunderstood is people have different criteria for trust. So for some people, it's like, I need to know everything about you. For other people, it's like, well, I only need to know what I need to know. I don't necessarily need to know the rest. Or, trusting someone on instinct. But it's not always as clear cut as that. People do have different definitions of what constitutes a breach of trust.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that you need to know that. Otherwise, there's every danger you're going to fall foul of it and hurt the other person. And you can hurt somebody completely unintentionally without genuinely meaning to, because it's just not something that is of whatever the particular thing is. It isn't of so significant, such a looming presence in your life.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to get that wrong. And it's true. Trust is very important, but people have different criteria for their values that absolutely, are set in stone or not.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yes. Fauna specifically, don't you think some people just can't cope with seeing the person they turn to for support in need of support themselves? And yes, that's certainly an element of it. You're supposed to be the strong one. You're supposed to be the one who holds everybody up.
Yeah.
Yes, well, bugger me. Sometimes, and it ain't often, but sometimes it's not going to happen. Sometimes we're human. We need.
Well, I've learned not to tell those friends of mine, if something's going on with me, I don't tell them till I've sorted it and dealt with it with myself.
Yeah.
Because if I tell them before, then they're going to have that an effect on us where, like, I can be drawn into this, they can bring, if like there's an issue and I've got an issue with my leg, they can bring us into their, oh my God, you might have a blood clot, or you know what I mean, or something. They always go down there. Yeah. So until it's dealt with, and then I'll tell them about it.
Yes, when you come out the other side of it.
So I know not to go to them for support for things like that, because I know. So I've learned who I can talk to and who I can't within my friend group. So. Yeah,
and it's good to know that, because then you're not going to make you make the mistake once and you think, no, actually I won't do that again. That's just too painful, and it's a terrible thing that nobody wants to hurt anybody, and sometimes you go so far out of your way not to hurt somebody that actually that in itself can be hurtful because you haven't been just honest and upfront. And I learned that very early on, that you need to know how to begin things and end things. You have to know, you have to be able to be honest and not be afraid of someone going, oh, but I don't like you anymore. It's like, okay, you don't have to like me anymore. I'm just telling you exactly as it is so you can make a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing as well. It's like honesty is being honest. And I have lost friends in the past, not so much as I've got older, but when I was a lot younger, I've been honest about things with friends, and then they've in one case scenario, I saw a friend of mine's boyfriend kissing another girl, and I told her, and
tricky.
But I couldn't not. I told her, and he twisted it on her, saying I was jealous because I wanted him and all this. And I mean, it was a long time ago, you know what I mean, like in our teens, but she obviously believed him and went but I could, even now, like all I could ever be is honest. I couldn't know something like that and not see anything.
I've got to admit, you want to look after the friend, and I would do the same. I would have to say, listen, I have to tell you something that's not pleasant. You're going to hate me for it, but if I don't tell you, somebody else will, and I think you'd better rather hear it from me. And off your trot, But being honest is, as I say, honesty is supposedly the best policy, but sometimes it can get you in an awful lot of trouble.
Yeah, I think there's times when you don't have to see it, like, you know what I mean. I've done it like in terms of clothing and stuff. For instance, like someone's wore something and I've said it doesn't really suit you, but I've tried to do it in a nice enough way, because I just feel like it needs to be said. But then I've also tried to not put my likes and dislikes on something as well, because I remember a friend of mine had a top and I thought it was awful. I thought the color was awful. It was like this paisley, different shades of green thing, and I just thought it was awful. And she was like, she had green eyes and dark hair, and it actually looked really nice on her. But like, I think
Yeah.
it was just my taste for me. I just didn't like it as part of my taste, and I wouldn't have wore it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I've kind of learned not to judge it on my taste, because if someone loves something, then that's their taste and it's up to them, isn't it? But if someone
Exactly.
doesn't suit something, like a color may fade them out, or the fit isn't right because it makes them look bigger, or
Yes.
you know what I mean, then I will say something in as nice a way as I can.
But you
Like,
acquire those sort of skills and ways of kind of being
yeah,
honest but with mercy. So it's kind of like, that is an interesting colour, but had you thought about that one in blue? Because I think that would really work best.
yeah,
That's the kind of thing. I mean, I am notorious. I like to say, do I dress myself? Yes. Mostly black. Yes. That's just me. But I can happily dress other people and go, you know what? You look fabulous in that. So
yeah,
I'll do it for myself.
totally.
Diplomacy. Yes, that's the one.
Hi, Nick,
Angela.
Paula, and Chrissy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Family
it's
to be
being
honest.
honest but being compassionate at the same time, and how to
Yeah, but
tread
I
the
think
line.
if you're good enough friends, then I
Yeah,
would want my friend to give me an honest opinion. I wouldn't want my friend to go, "Oh yeah, it's lovely," and then like send us out into the thing with my bum showing because it's not fit properly or something. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I,
We'd hope
I
you had a
kind
good
of,
enough friend
yeah,
to do
yeah.
that. The
Like
one who will tell
I'd
you your
rather,
skirt is hitched into your knickers when you come out the ladies.
yeah,
That
exactly, and not
that's
just
I will tell somebody. I
nigger
was like,
behind or
you've got a
something.
label sticking out there. You know,
Yeah,
I've even done it with strangers just because I think, oh, that they'll be mortified if they walk around all day like that. They'd rather
yeah.
know. Knowledge is power. I think I'd rather know. So I
I
make the
would rather know
assumption
as
everyone
well.
else would.
Yeah,
Could be wrong, but there you
and
go.
like if it's something that could be helpful, I try and do it like in a way that makes it sound not as bad, I suppose, as the worst is the thing.
Yes. Yes. What do they call it? The sandwich technique, isn't it? Where you put something
Yeah,
nice at either end and then just kind of gently drop in the
yeah.
bomb in the middle. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Jewel.
Yeah. Real friendships that last for many, many years will weather
Yeah,
those storms. And you can disagree on things, and that's okay. You can have big differences of opinions with your friends, but the fundamental thing is that you're there for them and they're there for you, and they
yeah,
accept you for who you are. And that's quite a leap, actually, because people think they know who you are sometimes
yeah,
based on what I call edited highlights. My true
yeah,
friends have known me for years and know all
yeah,
of my aspects. But yeah, when you get somebody who doesn't, it can be a bit tricky.
yeah. It's like I just kind of think, oh, we're all like a bit weird in some way, but it's
Oh, we are.
like everybody's weirdness you just need to find your group of weirdos, if that makes sense.
You need to find
And
your tribe.
yeah, you tribe of weirdos wherever they may be, like people who
Mm.
just have the same have the same understanding type of thing. um
Exactly. I have several tribes, and there is a level of crossover between them. But as I say, different communities for different sort of
yeah,
aspects, I suppose. But as I get to know them better, they get to understand that you're more than just this bit,
yeah,
and that's where good friendships come about. And being able to talk about anything. I always think that that's a real thing. If you know you can talk about anything and nothing is going to shock them, then you know you've got a good
yeah,
friend.
definitely. And also like
Yes, fine.
maybe not haven't spoken for a little while, but then immediately just be exactly how, like it just like you've like spoke yesterday, even if you hadn't spoke for a few weeks,
That's
because
a
it
good
just
one. That's a good
yeah,
benchmark. Yes. Absolutely, and it's not a case of it's not that they're going, oh, you haven't phoned me, you haven't done this. It's a case of we're all pretty busy people for one reason or another, with lives
yeah,
that seem to be incredibly full certainly at the moment. I can't believe it, but it's that thing of knowing I do care, I do think of you, and I do want to talk to you. It's just not
it's
always
just like
possible on a regular basis. Yeah, yeah. I think that's Andrea there, isn't it, on Nick and Andrea? Saying people think they know who you are, and especially people with big YouTube presences.
I think it's
My
Nick.
YouTube presence is minuscule, and I'm perfectly happy for it to stay that way. But when you've got sort of thousands and thousands of subscribers, and especially when you are sharing aspects of your life, they do feel they know you. But but again, they are only seeing very much apart. They don't see
Right,
the
yeah.
they don't see the down moments particularly.
No,
They don't see the
especially me.
initiative.
Then you put them in. Yeah, I thought it was you, Nick.
Oh, it's Nick. Yeah, I thought it
Yeah,
might be.
Andrea always uses that Andrea account, I think. Nick just, and I've never seen Andrea use this one.
Right.
Unless they're both sitting watching together, maybe, or something like that.
Yes,
like
that's
that,
true.
maybe.
An evening's viewing. Viewing pleasure.
Yeah.
Hi, Nick.
So we've got the truth's important. We've got the honesty is important.
And your trust, yes.
Yeah, true. I meant trust and not truth, but yeah, truth as well.
Yeah, being truthful is very important. And being honest to yourself as well. I mean, some people are so busy trying to be a good friend that they lose themselves, or a good partner in a relationship. They lose themselves in the process.
Yeah,
and that way lies all kinds of disaster, because you can't do that. You know, you lose yourself. You lose your life force if you do that.
Yeah. Must be hard being a vlogger. It blurs the lines. Yeah, it does a little bit. I suppose people. I mean, I'm pretty honest online anyway, but there's still a bit more of me that doesn't, I guess, come out, because I try and be honest. Obviously, doing this is very honest. Doing things like these, you know what I mean? I think it does help a lot, but I still think you've got to keep some of yourself away from that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, people have a private self, I think, that isn't necessarily out there for, on display, if you like. I think that's fair enough. We're many layered, many faceted. You can't possibly show all that. It's impossible.
Nick says, Lainey knows the real me and so far has stuck around long. Actually, I was just here for Andrea, but sorry. Just kidding. I'm kidding.
Honest.
I'm being honest. Sorry, I should have said it nicer. I'm just staying for Andrea. Okay, that's not even nicer, is
it? Rude. Yes, rude.
Yeah, I'm joking. I know he can take it, though, you see. That's the thing. I know he can take it.
Yeah. Previously for safety's sake, if not sanity's. I mean, this is the thing. A lot of people, especially in today's culture, people desperately want to be famous, just known, not for anything in particular, but just for being seen, I suppose. And being seen's all very well until you don't want to be seen, and then you're buggered.
Yeah.
It's like very tricky line to tread.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing for younger people as well, because I know both my nephews, who were 12 and 7, and like only the last sort of few months has my younger nephew been interested, but the older one, they both have been like shocked that people watch me on YouTube, and they're kind of like, you have people who are watching, talk to you and stuff, and they're both being really wowed by it, which is kind of weird. Do you know what I mean?
It doesn't last long being wowed, I can tell you. My son was kind of slightly taken aback for 2 minutes and then slightly horrified, and now it's just we've evened out now. He's just accepted. Our paths are not going to cross. His friends.
I remember asking the kids about it when I did it, when I first went. I went and I said to them, "How would you feel if I did YouTube?" And they both were like, "Not bothered."
Yeah, I mean, as far as my son's concerned, YouTube is, it's had its day, and it's all, something else.
It's all TikTok, isn't it now?
Yes.
It'll be something else.
On there. I think at all.
Yeah. Right. So, I guess what else is important is, do you have to have the same morals? Do you have to have similar morals? I would assume you would, wouldn't you?
I think your core values, if your sort of your ethics and your morals, I think have to be in line. I think if you're at completely opposite ends, it's not going to go somewhere, because you don't understand each other if you don't know what your core values are. But there'll be some differences. I mean, maybe differences in political values or attitudes towards child rearing. That's often a big one that doesn't really surface
Yeah.
until someone has had a kid, and then they suddenly find out, oh, you think that? How very old. Yeah, it can be ironed out, but it can often be a bit of a surprise to suddenly think. But when you know someone well enough, you know enough about their background, which hopefully you would if you were actually getting into a romantic relationship, you would kind of ask those questions. Then you're going to have some understanding of where they might be coming from. So, yeah. Because people do play out what's gone on in their family before, whether they want to or not.
Well, me and my sister have had differences in like child things and whatever as years have gone on and other things, but we always just, if we can't agree, we just agree to disagree because life's too short. You know what I mean? And like you've got your point of view, I've got mine. Neither of us are going to change. You know,
that's important to accept the differences and be okay with it, because
yeah,
you know, it's the 80-20 rule. If 80% of the time you've got things in common, that the other 20% isn't so important. You don't have to have everything in a row, because a perfectionist just not going to happen.
And plus also, you know, not just it. I mean, morally and you know, you're in a core and all that. I get that bit, but like other than that, things that you enjoy and stuff, you need to have something separate, I think, as well.
I think it's very important to maintain your independence and your individuality. It's difficult in situations where ill health comes in or other considerations, but generally it's healthy. You know, being in someone else's pocket, I always found the idea quite horrifying as a long-term plan. It's like, oh no, because sometimes you have much better relationship if you're away and come back together, even if you're out, someone's out the day doing something. But if you literally, this is where lockdown blew so many relationships apart, because being together all the time, there's got to be quite a relationship that can stand up to that.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, Richard, Pat. I have a very dear friend of 30 plus years, and I really struggle with her parenting techniques. It can make for tough situations, but it's important to separate the two to maintain a friendship. Totally agree with that.
Yeah, one of my dear friends was when my son was young, we had, you know, very different ideas. She was brought up in a very traditional kind of East End of London kind of environment, and her childhood had been a particular way. I wasn't. I was a little bit younger. But what we did was we actually had quite great in-depth conversations about the psychology of why I was doing what I was doing. And in fact, it was interesting because she told me where she was coming from, but we were discussing it and throwing out ideas, and I was looking at things in a very different way to how she was, and I took on board some of the things she was saying. Yeah, I can see that, and we had to agree to disagree on some things, but actually, it was quite a useful thing because it gave me a whole different view on how an awful lot of people were brought up back in the 60s, 60s, 70s. Yeah. So you can learn things from people as well, even if they do come from, with a very, very different mindset. But yes, so agreeing to differ and being able to park something and go, look, that's not what's important right now.
Yeah.
It can be hard. It can be really hard to do it. Yeah.
So we've got obviously trust, honesty, sharing core moral values, etc. But and agreeing to disagree on anything that doesn't quite overlap, I guess. Then having your own space as well.
Yes.
And then what about in relationships, what about relationships with other people outside of that relationship? So if your other half has a female friend, where's the border of those relationships that maybe the female friends were there beforehand?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? How does that work? And then I guess one of the things I put down is, what would you define as cheating?
Yeah. Now, what is a divorce? I suppose the layman's way of saying it is, what is a divorceable offence? What is the thing that you cannot stand? What is the line where someone goes over that? They're gone. It's a whole new scenario. And again, people have different criteria for this. I know what mine is. I know what my husband's is. They're actually different,
Mm.
but I accept what his is, and that's fair enough. But I know that, and I knew that quite early on. So it is understanding that people are going to have different views on this. I mean, I personally feel it is really, really good for people to have friends of all of the sexes, you know, opposite
Totally
sexes,
agree on that one.
particularly for men. I think they need to talk to get a female point of view that isn't necessarily their nearest and dearest. I think it's good for kids to have adults in their life who are not necessarily their parents, who they can bounce ideas off and, you know, have a different relationship with. I do think it is important to have a wide selection of points of view on things. But yeah, obviously there's when does flirting become a problem? When does it cross over? Where are your boundaries? And you have to know where your boundaries are, and make sure your partner knows where those boundaries are, because otherwise, again, you know, some people are hopeless flirts. They can't help themselves. Anytime there's a social situation, they're all over it. But if you know that person well enough to know that it absolutely doesn't mean a damn thing, they are literally just playing, that's fine. But if you can't,
if that became, say that flirting became a private conversation with another person, does that then, I mean, although again, it depends on who's looking at it from whose point of view.
It does.
To different people. To me, that's going on. That's too far. You know what I mean? Like, I think it, as you said, it's good to have like relationships, like healthy relationships with both sexes as well. And you do get people who are a bit flirty and jokey, but if that's done private, outside of, like, my dad was probably a bit like that, and my mum used to go, you know what I mean, whatever. But it was like, you know, just a little bit jokey and stuff that was always done in front of her and stuff like that. It wasn't like,
you had to understand.
You know what I mean? Because my mum used to just joke back and say, you can have them, I'll divorce them, you know what I mean, or whatever, like just just mucking about and whatnot. And I know that a lot I've seen that kind of relationship a lot with certain people, you know what I mean? But then if that but I've also seen like secrecy relationships that, well, you know what I mean?
This is the thing. Once something becomes secret, it becomes a bit more exciting. Which is also,
and I've seen that on both sides. I've seen it with men doing it with other women, and I've seen it with women doing it with other men. And I've kind of said to you know, well, how would you feel if the shoe were on the other foot, kind of thing? And also, like, to me, that's gone too far. But then that's up to me. But if he knows about that and he's fine, then that's fine, because that's how your relationship works. But if he doesn't know about that, and then you're doing that, and especially if that conversation becomes something more than just harmless flirting, I guess, you know what I mean? Then where do you go from there? Like, it's such a tricky thing. Like, I guess you have to make sure that as Paula said, that your boundaries are clear.
Boundaries is often a difficult thing, and certainly in therapy people do a lot of work with being boundaried themselves, because once you start deciding where that line is and where you stand on it, then it's much easier to be open and honest and communicate with other people. What often happens is people make assumptions about a partner, particularly they'll assume the other partner knows where they're coming from, and they're not mind-reading.
Charger.
We don't need
that. Let's just definitely get my charger while I remember. Otherwise I'll end up disappearing.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
But, it is that being very clear and communicating, and it's not always easy, because sometimes it's easy to let something slide or not talk about it, and that's usually the beginning of problems, because then what happens is the other person might go and talk to somebody because they need somebody to talk to, because that's not happening within the home environment for whatever reason, because of stress or time, or and that's it. Often isn't because people have a kind of a particular urge to get together with somebody. What they're usually looking for is connection. So it's a symptom sometimes rather than a cause, if you know what I mean.
I've seen friends of mine who have literally been driven insane because they think that something's going on, but they have no proof of such
Yeah.
exactly. And I've brought it up with them, and they obviously deny it. But then these keep things, little things keep happening, and that makes them, and they become like different people. They become
paranoid,
neurotic, kind of obsessed.
And they're no fun to be in a relationship with either. Nobody wants to be in a relationship with someone who's obsessed. It's scary.
Yeah. And they're checking Facebooks of people's Facebooks and looking at, and it becomes like, you know what I mean? It's like
it often drives away the very person they want to keep. They are so desperate, and this is the desperation that drives people away. And they doubt themselves, they doubt the other person, so all trust is gone. And even if nothing's happened, you can probably bet your life at some point something will, just because the person feels unconnected and mistrusted, and the relationship loses its good points.
I guess that's the thing, isn't it? It's
a shame, but
if something was happening, you drive yourself insane to find out, and you just want the truth, and you need, I don't know why people need absolute, they need to hear it from the person, essentially, and sometimes some people just know what's happening and avoid even talking about it, discussing it. You know what I mean? And it's
neither thing is good, is it? Neither thing really works terribly well, because it then becomes the secret. You're kind of keeping their secret, and and they don't know. It's a Cold War, and nobody wants one of those.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I also wrote what makes a relationship healthy. But then again, it comes down to everybody's key values and boundaries and all those things being brought into play to then decide. You know what I mean? And also give and take, and no control, but talking.
Exactly. A lot of this has come about, and Paula said, do you think it lies in an insecurity that lies dormant? And again, it's going back to that age-old human thing of not feeling good enough, and thinking that that the person you're with is basically waiting for something better to come along, which is basically saying I'm not good enough, and that being at the kernel of almost everything that drives a lot of the behaviour. The need to sort of have affairs is usually about validation, about feeling valued. It's very rarely about the sex, to be honest. Very rarely does it come down to that. Yeah. So insecurity, yes, that lies at the root of so many.
Of previous relationships as well that might have gone wrong and might have had that happen, so a person sort of expects it.
Yeah, bad experiences do tend to layer, and what happens is that the person will meet somebody who seems completely different in so many ways, so nice, but there's something very familiar about them and they're drawn to it. The problem is the familiar should be the red bloody flag that sends you scurrying in the opposite direction, because that is exactly what happened the time before.
Yeah.
So people do tend to repeat unless they spot their own pattern and break it.
Yeah. It's also, I've seen people who have cheated, and then their partner who have blamed the person they've cheated with and not their partner.
Oh, yeah, because they're still holding a torch for the partner.
And so, it become like, and I'm like, but they didn't even know you existed. How can you?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? They were caught.
You're both victims, aren't you? So
totally.
Yeah, it's very easy to do that. Blame someone else and the other party. It's like, well, and really their fault. The deception has gone on with the person who is playing both strings.
My mum always used to say it to us, about obviously, I think one of the 3 things she used to say, which was about not staying with a partner who doesn't let you be yourself, not staying with a partner who raises their hands and not staying with a partner who cheats. That was the 3 things she always used to say to us.
3 divorceable offences. Yeah, pretty much. And it's clear, isn't it? It is clear that you have to be very clear about what you will tolerate and what you will not. And most people just don't seem to communicate that to the person they're with at an early enough stage.
And I guess that also is that down to they're looking for happiness in other people, so therefore
and insecurity.
And so
if I say this, they'll go away. They won't want to be with me because I'm being demanding.
Because I'm wanting this or I'm wanting that, or so then they become sort of a doormat, or in a way, just allowing people to walk all over them, which is essentially.
And it happens by tiny increments as well. I mean,
so they don't even realize.
Aware until something quite significant happens. The life will potter on, and they'll just get into these patterns and these ways of doing things, and it will all seem quite normal because that's how the relationship is. And it's only when someone on the outside goes, "Can you really not buy yourself a new bed without having to check with his nibs first?" It's like, what? Having to ask permission, not having your own money, all the there's a lot of very subtle and very difficult things that a lot of people have to deal with.
I don't understand why. I mean, and obviously, I wouldn't because I'm not like that, but I don't understand why someone wants to control someone like that.
It makes them feel powerful. And again, it comes out of tremendous insecurity, as most things do. I don't feel I'm good enough to retain this partner, so I need to have power over them in order to keep this partner. Yeah. It's a power over situation, and relationships should never be about power over, because there's always a victim. And actually, even the person doing it sometimes is sometimes blissfully unaware, but they're just as damaged. It's
definitely. Damaged, but in a different way. But then they cause them more damage.
Exactly, they're just inflicting their pain onto somebody else.
Definitely. I think I've spoke about everything I've written. I don't know if any of the chat has anything to add.
Communication. I think Paula's got it there. Communication that is honest, respectful, fair, and on both sides. That, and that's not always easy. Some people are more chatty than others, or more, more likely to sort of say what they're feeling. Other people feel that they shouldn't, or then they've not been brought up in an environment where they can. So it's not easy. It's quite hard.
No, definitely. Sometimes control is done out of lack of trust. So that could be lack of trust because of previous issues that they've had. Not that the person may have done things that's made them lack trust in them, but also it could be stuff that is previous that they're putting onto that person.
It's like, everyone leaves me, you're not going to leave me, I'm going to make you not leave me. That's kind of where we go with that. It's horrible.
I suppose that's kind of in the opposite way of people who don't get into relationships because people leave them or pass away, so they don't do that because of that way. Nothing, they won't hurt because they don't get close to anyone.
And there's a lot of people who will put up walls, and once they really start to get close to someone, the thought of being that vulnerable is too painful. They've had hurt in the past, and it's like, I can't do that again. So that they will literally push the other person away, or go go very silent of them and just drop them. And it's a great shame because they're often people with an awful lot to give, but they need therapy. They need to sort it out. Gosh, there aren't enough therapists in the world to deal with all of this stuff, but I think it
would be good if we could all have someone, I think, like that, because I think talking about things helps massively in anything, in all areas. If you just speak about it, it always helps you to feel better.
And you're rarely the only person in the world that's ever gone through anything like it. You can be very isolating.
Yeah, you can feel
there's
like you're the
always
only person, can't you? But
Yeah.
like you said, it's very rare that is the case.
Yeah, there's usually plenty of other people who've trodden a similar path and come out the other side, and who aren't desolate just because they've not got a partner at that current time, or they've reshaped their own life once they've got control of it back again.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who go, oh, but it's too late. You'll hear people say that of all sorts of ages, actually. Oh, well, it's too late for me, or it's never ever too late. Why would it be?
Yeah. Like we had a couple of people in last week, didn't we, who were in their late 60s, was it?
Yeah,
Who had found love then. So,
exactly. It's glorious. There's no barrier to it. There's no reason why you can't find happiness at any age. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's you put that guard up, and then you struggle to let it go, don't you? And it's or you may start trusting someone, and brick by brick it starts to come down, and then something happens that makes you quickly put all your bricks back and add an extra layer of cement just to make sure.
That's it, double layers. Yes, I mean, and I do think that unless stuff has really been dealt with, the old hurts will just mount up. It just becomes many layered.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult it's not impossible to change, but it requires a real desire to change and finding the right form of therapy that will help with that, which isn't the same for all people, really.
Because I've heard a lot of people who say they've tried therapy or they've tried like a type of therapy, but I always think that you really need to go back and go back to it, because not all therapists are going to be the right therapist for that person, because
Absolutely.
I think I've had a couple of different ones. One that I got on really well with. Well, in fact, I had a peer support worker and a CPN, so community psychiatric nurse, and I've also seen a psychiatrist before. And the psychiatrist was very distant. No, there was no. He only asked questions and was writing stuff. The community community psychiatric nurse was very good, but I found, because I had the peer support worker who'd been through similar situation, I was much easier to talk to them. So then the three of us kind of worked better that way, because then I could speak to him about things. We really liked a lot of the same things, and we talked a lot about just normal life stuff, like what's on television. So it didn't feel like it was a therapy in a sense in that for that side. And then
it's finding the right person.
Finding the right person
again that you trust. It's a relationship again with the therapist. Has exactly the same things. There are boundaries, there are clarities, there's communication, there's trust, honesty, truthfulness. All of that comes in. You need that from the therapist, so you've got to feel very comfortable with them. Oh, hello, Julie. And it's you're late, and it really is a thing, and however good a therapist one might become, you're never going to please everybody, and that's not the point. And there are so many different forms as well. Counselling is marvellous, but not everybody takes to that. Other people prefer stuff like hypnotherapy or cognitive behavioural therapy, which can be very useful in certain cases, or they'll do one and then move into something else because it seems to fit what they need at the time. So it's a lifelong thing. We spend our whole lifetime trying to get to know who we are and what's going on with us.
I think sometimes it's so hard to bring up stuff from the past that you've buried so deep that you don't want to, you know what I mean? You don't want to bring up, you want to leave it there because it's too painful. But it does help to do it, and I know I went through it myself. And it wasn't easy doing it, but it made a massive difference.
Yeah, and it's like a weight off you, isn't it? Once it's out
completely.
And also I find that with issues generally, that even though you work through them in therapy, they will come back round again. but lesser. If you've been doing, it's like peeling layers off an onion. It does.
Definitely.
Things are still there because they've been there for many years, but you somehow lessen their impact. And poor Fauna, they're saying I struggled to connect with one of my therapists so badly. In the end, I gave up and started talking to his office plant instead. Well, I'm sure you would have got a more sensible reply out of the plant. But that's a case of just the wrong match. It's
definitely.
Don't always gel.
Mm.
I'm sorry, Julie B. I was only taking the mic, really. You be as late as you like. It's all right.
Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, but I can't. I mean, obviously we've gone through what we've said here. Talked a bit about family relationships. Talked a bit about like partner relationships and friend relationships. So we've and even like relationships with other people, like you said, getting the correct therapist is a relationship that also you need to find the right person. I know what that word was. It just come out.
It's a new word.
Yeah, make them up. Obviously,
why not?
Do me your own dictionary.
Oh, Julie was a counsellor. Yeah, it is very, very demanding. You know, I had a lot of counselling training, and I was a hypnotherapist for many years, and very much enjoyed it. But it's incredibly intense. It's very rewarding.
Yeah.
But you know, things always change. I'm like that. Do something for 20 years and think I'll move on.
Yeah.
But absolutely loved the work, because to see people transform themselves is one of the most rewarding things. It truly is. It's lovely.
Being able them to be able to have just a life again, or whatever it was that was holding them back from, to be able to see them
becoming themselves. Really, it's such a lovely thing to kind of help someone do it for themselves, but with with a little bit of an assist. Really, you're not getting them to do it, but you are just encouraging and giving them some of that confidence back. And a lot of the work that I did was about rebuilding confidence, self-trust, a right to be in the world, and being good enough. And that's probably underpins almost everything I did.
Yeah, Laney language.
Laney language. Oh, that's lovely.
Apparently, she freaked him out, and he passed her on to another colleague.
Well, I mean, to be honest, if he should, well, they should have known quite early on in the proceedings that it wasn't a good match, and made provision for you. That would have been,
Yeah.
You might have noticed you weren't actually connecting with him, but the plant was doing well.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't need someone to reply, so a plant's just as good, isn't it?
What are pets for? How many people have meaningful conversations with their animals? Because they do, and dogs in particular are known for connecting in on a very deep emotional level, energetically, with people.
Yeah.
And cats do too, but slightly more on their own terms. But they do.
Just for like knows if I'm sad or if I'm upset and if I'm crying. But then I think he just likes to lick the salty tea a bit, because he's a bit. Dog likes the taste of salt, isn't there?
But it is an emotional thing. They do read your emotions. Yeah, very much. They're far brighter than most people think they are. On that level. It's why they've been the companions to man for thousands of years, because they've learned to do that. And Jeff is Nick's therapist, yes. And he's gorgeous though.
He is.
I keep seeing the Daily Jeff when I pop onto Instagram and see little updates of little white doggo. It's really cute.
Watching Jeff's ears is just therapy, I think. He is a lush.
Yeah, I know. He's very cute. He's deeply cute, as dogs go. And I speak as a cat person, so if I find him utterly charming, he's definitely got the knack.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I've whispered so many secrets into velvety ears that I'd never shared with another person, because it's not going to go any further. You have client confidentiality with the pooch.
Yeah, Jasper didn't say anything, so don't worry.
He's not talking.
He's not talking now. So I think we're pretty much covered now, aren't we? I think, unless we went sort of deeper into things. But if anyone has any suggestions of things you would like us to talk about in this, then you can please put them in the comments in the chat, side chat now, or you can leave a comment afterwards, whichever, if you're watching this back. And you know, we'll come up with a new thing. I keep hitting my knuckles off the table. One of these days I'll miss it when I move my hand. I'm trying to find my notes again. Right, so I think we did that. Loneliness, didn't we? We did disability.
Yeah, we've worked our way through quite a bit of the list, I think.
Yeah. Did we do addiction? Mental health? We haven't had one.
Let me have a look at my notes. I can't remember what we did now. Hang on, let me try and do this without disconnecting something. Bit of an avalanche going on to one side here.
I mean, mental health's obviously huge, and we have touched on it in a lot of the.
We did addiction, disability, life, work, health issues. Mental health, I don't think that we have really gone into, because obviously that underpins so much of what we talk about. But we can certainly do something on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like where do you start with that? I suppose, because, like you said, it's such a big subject, and I think we've covered it in bits in terms of like mental health is coming under addiction, it's coming under relationships, it's coming under death and grief, it's coming under work, it's coming under disability. So in every aspect, really, hasn't it? So it
underpins everything. If your mind is healthy, then you can cope with most things. If there's stuff going on and you know, destructive patterns and things like that, it's going to have a massive effect on everything else. So nothing's totally unconnected, that's for sure.
Definitely. So I think we'll do it on mental health, and then we'll see where the whole. I'll make a few notes and stuff and see where the whole thing goes. Yeah. Oh, you had a long conversation over a tennis ball. Oh, that'll be right.
Yeah. So many notes.
As old Bob once said, it's good to talk. Thanks, Rainy.
Bob.
Oh, Bob. Yeah. So yeah, we'll wrap up for this week. Thank you to everyone for joining. Thank you to the lovely Heather for coming over. So we've changed it to 7:30 on a Tuesday now instead of the 2 p.m. afternoon slot. And we'll be back next week on Heather's channel. And we'll start looking into mental health. That might be a few episode one, that I assume. But we'll start there next week on Heather's channel. As I said, the link is below for Heather's channel. If you aren't subscribed, please go and do so. And I shall see you in 30 minutes time for Trivia Tuesday, for the last one. Because after that, it will be Banishbin back. So
yay!
There you go. So goodbye, everybody. See you in 30 minutes. Bye.
Bye now. Bye.